Achor the king, a man of giant stature, I found hurling javelins before and behind, as he sat on horseback. And I took up a stone of 60 pounds weight, and hurled it, and smote his horse, and killed it. The Testament of Judah. Welcome, friends. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Secrets Revealed here on Truth Frequency Radio. And I'm joined by Rob Skiba tonight, and we'll continue our Genesis Revisited series. Rob, are you doing all right, man?
I'm doing good, Zen. How are you?
I'm doing good too, man. I'm enjoying the weather and just being blessed and glad to be home and not have any conferences or any deadlines or anything of that nature, to really be able to take my time. And I've been reading a book called a new release called the New Testament Apocrypha Book 2, which was released by Brent Landau and this other individual I can't remember, but it is full of really incredible kind of newer, connected to the New Testament revelations and manuscripts that I've never seen published before. And so it's an incredible collection, and I do recommend that people get it and check it out. I was reading through it all day today and saw even confirmation of Pharisees being called the sons of Cain in a book called the Testament of Philip or something of that nature. I'll look it up while we're talking, but really incredible text and a lot of information coming out.
Wow, a text that you're not familiar with. Now you have me intrigued.
Yeah, right.
So it's an apocryphal. Most people, when they say the apocrypha, it's dealing with books that were taken out of the so-called Old Testament. So these are from the New Testament.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is called the New Testament Apocrypha.
Interesting.
And two entire books. It reminds me of the pseudepigrapha that was put out by Charlesworth, I believe is his name, James Charlesworth. He did the two really thick hardback volumes, 1 and 2 of the pseudepigrapha, and these are not as thick as those. Those are like 700 pages each, but these are quite extensive, and a lot of manuscripts again, which I have never seen published anywhere previously, and really good reading. Oh yes, here it is. It is called the New Testament Apocrypha, More Non-Canonical Scriptures. And this is volume 2.
Wow.
By Tony Burke. And I have the first one too, and the first one has a lot of information as well that you don't find published in a lot of places, but that one has a few that have been published in different places. And it also contains the revelation of the Magi, which we've talked about previously. But if people like manuscripts that they've never had chance to read, definitely check out those two collections, Tony Burke and Brett Landau.
Very cool.
Yeah. And this one was just published July 21st, 2020, so not been available for very long at all.
Nice.
What else have you been up to? Working hard?
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of stuff done for the video game, and working on some things also for the animated TV series. Teaching myself stuff along the way, so it's slower than normal because I'm there's a learning curve to overcome on some of it, but I've actually learned some pretty cool stuff. I'm amazed at the tools that I've had for quite some time. Just like anything else, especially when you're self-taught, there's so many things in some of these softwares that I've never used before, and I'm like, oh, right. I didn't know this could do that. Wow, look at that, that's cool.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that's kind of been my week, building stuff and getting things ready for people. And I just had a guy contact me this afternoon, as a matter of fact, who's a concept artist, and we've had several contact me over the years. Many very talented people, but this guy lives like 5 minutes from me.
Oh,
So
how nice.
yeah, he actually kind of right around the area where we had the big flat Earth conference here in Dallas recently. What was it, last year, or whenever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he lives up in that area, and he's like 5 minutes from my office. So we're gonna hook up tomorrow around 7 o'clock. So real excited about that. I mean, I really appreciate and enjoy working with people that are out of state and even out of country, but to have somebody that's actually like, boom, like right here, that I can look over his shoulder, have him come into my office, set up a workstation for him. I haven't had that. This will be the first. So
Yeah, that's great.
excited about that.
Because that is rare, to find people that you can gather together. Because there's something about being in the presence of each other and being able to share conversation and dialogue and brainstorming and inspiring one another on this or that. Yeah, that's really awesome.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that meeting tomorrow. I've got possibly another phone call with one of the head of the video game department after this show. See how things are going. So things are moving forward. We're also working on with Jake Grant doing a all-day virtual conference that's essentially the presentations that I gave for the Take on the World conference, but just kind of re-edited it a bit. So instead of 4 presentations, there's 5 presentations, but with some stuff in between and talking about new technologies and things and why I'm doing what I'm doing, how I'm doing what I'm doing. And Sheila just sent me some videos yesterday. The new iPad 12 is coming out, and I guess the newest iteration of the iPhone also has like 4 cameras on it, and I think it's called LiDAR scanning or something like that. But basically, you could take your cell phone into a room and open up the software, whatever, and just do like a 360, real slow kind of panoramic, and it will build the room in 3D.
That's amazing. Wow.
Like it uses a scanner to scan every object in the room. And the more time you take doing it, the more detailed it becomes. But the early stuff that I saw with it looked amazing. So you basically, if I go on location, I find a cool location, I just set that up, do a scan of the room, and now I have it in 3D, and I can do it as 3D. So yeah,
that's very cool.
Technology
is
getting really amazing.
Technology, yeah.
Truly.
It really is.
Truly is. So
yeah, I've seen them use like the laser where they go into these deep crevices, and then they are able to use some kind of laser thing that emits lasers all over and captures and then shows on the screen a 3D rendering of whatever cavity or cave or that they're trying to, and being able to see it from that manner, it gives you perspective that you otherwise would not be able to have. So,
and all that is going to be available in the palm of your hand.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And the low light capability that the new iPhone has for shooting, I guess the iPad too, but able to shoot at night. And like usually, any kind of camera, when you're dealing with shooting at night, you got to deal with grain issues. So it's grainy. But what I've seen looks amazing. I mean, from what I saw, it looked just as the pictures taken at night look just as good as the pictures taken in the day without being grainy. So
and without the flash component.
Yeah, without having you just natively. So
nice.
So it captures what your eye is seeing effectively. And I mean it is incredible now what you can do with a phone.
Right.
I mean,
right.
The Red camera is arguably one of the top cameras that people who do digital filmmaking are using. They're competitors, of course, but most cinematographers would be familiar certainly with the Red, and that's a big, bulky, very expensive camera, even though the prices have come down significantly over the years. But now to have it in a phone for like $1,000 I mean, just and with it being that small, you can get the camera actually physically put the camera in locations that you can never get these big bulky cameras in, and you used to have to set up. I mean, I've done it where you have railroad tracks, and you got a dude sitting on a little cart that you put on the railroad tracks, and you push them along to get a nice craning, moving shot, trucking shot with the action. Well, now, I mean, they even got image stabilization and stuff built into these phone cameras. But I mean, you can get a relatively inexpensive gimbal handheld device that you can do Steadicam with. I mean, you used to take Steadicam was actually invented for Rocky, the movie Rocky. When Stallone was running up the stairs and he does the famous run up the stairs and jumps up and down,
Right.
That shot, the only way they could get that shot was to invent technology that would not make the camera shake when the cameraman ran up the stairs with him. Here's a nice smooth shot. So they invented Steadicam for Rocky. But I've used a Steadicam before. I mean, especially if you're doing it all day, you got to be in really good shape, because you imagine this big heavy harness that they put on you with this extended metal crane arm that comes off you with all these springs, and some have hydraulics and stuff, and then you put this big heavy camera on top of that, so you got this lopsided weight hanging off the side of you. Now it's all in a phone that you can have in a little, practically a selfie stick with a gyro on it. Man, it's just amazing what.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. And for it's
Or
going
gimbal, I
to
mean.
give more and more people the ability, and as far as directors and producers and different individuals, that's going to give them more opportunity, as far as those kind of career paths. So that's really cool too.
Yeah. Good stuff. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
exciting. It's taking up a lot of time, but hey, what else do I got to do, right?
Yeah, right.
And man, this week I'm really gonna try something, especially if I'm gonna start working on it now, but this is going into 2021. I'm gonna try to stay 1 day on Facebook and 3 days off.
Right on. That might save you some time.
It's time and sanity. What people need to understand is, yeah, I get pretty in your face on Facebook, but 90+% of my posts are reactionary to something else I was dealing with for hours prior to it. But what I have to keep in mind is, there's 30,000 plus people looking at my Facebook page that aren't privy to whatever the conversation was before, that lit me off. So, they just sign in the Facebook. There's Skiba going crazy again. I literally had to look at myself in the mirror the other day. I'm like, dude, what's the matter with you? What is your major malfunction? Okay, what is your problem? And I had to talk myself down. And they say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and again, expecting a different result. And I'm like,
right.
okay, I've been on that treadmill too long. I gotta shift, because I used to be a happy, goofy, happy-go-lucky guy. Now I'm angry all the time. So,
Well, when you get attacked, all the time, it'll kind of tick you off.
well,
For sure.
yeah, that's a big part of it. But also, just the whole world's taking a psycho pill, man. It's like,
Oh yeah, no doubt.
I just saw something this afternoon where Gal, what's her name? The girl that played Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot or something like that. Anyway, whatever her name is. She was cast for there's some kind of new up and coming movie, Cleopatra. And of course, this cancel culture is going crazy right now. Oh, it's whitewash. She should be black. Blah blah. She was Greek.
Oh gosh.
She was a Greek Macedonian.
Uh,
But everybody's going off like, oh, because she's an Egyptian, right? That she's got to be black.
right,
It's like,
yeah.
she's a Greek. But just people going crazy about everything now. It's like, oh my goodness.
Right.
I want to get off the ride, man.
Yeah. I don't do a lot of the Facebook just
for you.
because of all that. Don't have time for it and don't want to get caught up in it. And it used to be, it's not as bad now, but anytime I would log on, I'd get bombarded.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, too. There's always somebody going crazy.
Yeah, and so I just come on for about 15 minutes when I list all the shows that I'm going to do, and that's about the extent of it. And then every once in a while, I'll try to clear all the messages and
Yeah.
answer people as I can. But other than that, I don't spend a whole lot of time on it.
Yeah, good for you. Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm gonna hope to get to the point where I'm just doing hit and runs. Just hey,
Yes, yes.
this is what I just uploaded on YouTube, or hey, there's a show I'm getting ready to do, or whatever, and
Yeah.
try to stay focused on other things because with the politics and I've been out of politics
Oh
for
gosh,
a
no
decade,
doubt.
but this year, man, I just can't shake the feeling that it's critically important that
Uh-huh.
like it's a make or break for this country. Like at this point, we had early voting today, so we Sheila and I and my sister-in-law we took care of that, so that's off my
Right
plate
on.
now.
How was it?
It was
Did it-
there was a place not right around the corner from where we lived. It was in and out in like 5 minutes. I mean, it was really
Oh,
easy.
really? Okay, that's good.
Yeah, and it
Yeah,
was
because they were talking
handwritten.
here in Georgia like 8 hours or more, for
You,
the early voting.
yeah, what you should do is look around. We have there's something called nextdoor.com that's sort of like a neighborhood Facebook kind of thing, and it's just people in your local area that are on it. I guess it's by zip code or something. Anyway, we saw on there that people are like, "Hey, go here." There's like nobody there, so we're like, "Cool, yeah." So we went there,
Oh, right on.
and it was well staffed, and it was all paper ballots. You color in the dot, and stick it in the machine, and it reads it out like your old SAT scores. So feel pretty confident in that system anyway, as best considering what else is out there anyway.
Hmm.
But
Well, what I think is really going to be interesting is the aftermath.
oh man,
Yeah,
yeah. Do you have the sense that we have like 2 weeks left to enjoy whatever it is we want to enjoy?
right.
Because it's gonna go
Yeah,
completely insane
because then the
afterwards.
chaos is going to hit the streets, and nobody, somebody's going to be mad and PO'd, and uh, a lot of people are not going to be happy, and depending on if they're, going to contest whatever, because there seems to be that mindset out there that, whoever gets in or whatever
Yeah, both are gonna do it.
happens, yeah, somebody's going to be upset, somebody's going to contest it, and there's going to be riots and marching and whatever.
Did you see that? It's gone viral. I forgot the title of it, but it's a video going around right now about all these emails and communications regarding Hunter Biden and Benghazi and like the Obama administration and stuff. I mean, it's like lots of very, 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 very damning information that has recently
Really.
just dropped. Like just a few days ago, it was like the 10th or 11th, just a couple of days ago.
Hmm.
I guess it was over the weekend. Um, anyway, like if what is said in that video is true, it's no wonder the Democratic Party absolutely has to get rid of Trump because otherwise, pretty much all of them are going to jail or going to be
They
hanging from the gallows.
they need to. I mean, what they did to Ambassador Stevens and
Yeah,
the
I know.
soldiers that were protecting him, that was straight up murder. I mean, they allowed them to be slaughtered.
Yeah, and it was a whole bunch of stuff on the SEAL Team 6 deal,
Uh-huh.
like what was intentionally done to them by
Yeah, they were killed too
they were murdered.
to
And
cover it up. Yeah.
yeah, I posted a few videos on that. I think it was Sunday. I think Saturday or Sunday. Anyway, yeah, lots of stuff, man. Stuff's coming out,
Hmm.
and it's kind of Facebook says, hey, this time last year, 4 years ago or whatever, today you posted this, and it was right after I saw that video. Facebook said, hey, this is what you posted, last year, and it was this time
Uh-huh.
last year over the weekend that I was hiking through the woods at the nature preserve, and I was crying out to God, like, when are you going to do something here? Like, when are the innocent going to be set the captives free and punish the
Yes,
wicked and
yes.
stuff? And like, I'm crying out to God. I come around the corner, and there's a sign on the tree. It says Judgment Day is coming.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah, I love that.
remember
That's a
that?
great story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was. Facebook reminded me of that picture and the post that I made on Facebook right after I saw that video, and I'm going, well,
Right on.
okay, Father, I pray that this is true, that this
Yes.
stuff finally does see the light of day, and Darkness can't hide from the light anymore.
Right. One last thing before we move into it. I don't know if you heard, but there were a lot of channels purged last night. Red Pill and SGT Report and several other truther channels. Yeah.
YouTube?
Yeah, completely wiped out.
Oh man, there's a feature on Facebook because people are talking about the same thing happening on Facebook. There's a feature in settings, if you go into the settings, that allows you to back up everything you've ever done on Facebook. So every post that you've made, every comment you've made, every note you've written, every picture you've uploaded. Mine was quite a large file because I've been in since like 2008 or 2009 or something like that. But it allowed. Let me see. It was two files. Yeah, one was 10, almost 11 gigs, and one was about 3.5 gigs. So about 14 gigs worth of stuff. But
that's awesome.
Yeah,
you posted a lot and a lot of blogs and
37. It downloaded 37 folders with all the messages posted and everything. So if people are concerned about, and what's really cool about that is now I can open it up on my own computer and do an index search for, like, I'm like, there was something I can't remember, where did I post that? When did I post that? Well, it's all there. So I can, as HTML, so I can easily just do a search and boom, everything pops up. So I need to make sure I've backed up everything on YouTube. Most of my stuff on YouTube is backed up already, but I need to go through again if there's a wave of purging coming. I wouldn't be surprised that splashes this way.
Thank God, we haven't been targeted for that yet.
Well,
I pray we don't, but
maybe because we're more biblically based on things. Although that's
I fully agree.
Probably coming too. But
we do cover a lot of controversial stuff, but we're not 100% focused on just that and the politics and all that. Whereas a lot of these other people that were purged, that was their 100% focus. And
especially if it's politically motivated these days. If you're doing anything political, and the establishment doesn't like it, man, they're getting just hammered.
Yeah.
Well.
Yep.
So I think last week we got through Genesis 13, and I think we covered pretty much everything from Targums or Joshua or Jubilees, if memory serves. And you were reading from, it was either the Targum or Writings of Abraham, but you were getting ready to jump into Genesis 14 territory. So unless you can recall anything else, I think maybe we start with Genesis 14 and...
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think we covered a lot of the other stuff in great detail and from many different perspectives. And of course, there's other information out there, but I think we covered it pretty well.
Okay. We got a few minutes before break. Let me see if I can get through. I'll read King Jimmy here for Genesis 14. And it came to pass in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Kedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of nations, that these made war with Bera, king of Sodom, and with Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, and Shemeber, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, which is Zoar. All these were joined together in the vale of Siddim, which is the Salt Sea. 12 years they served Kedorlaomer, and in the 13th year they rebelled. And in the 14th year came Kedorlaomer and the kings that were with him, and smote the Raphaims in Ashtaroth Karnaim, and the Zuzim in Ham, and the Emims in Shavakiriathaim, and the Horites in their Mount Seir, and El Paran, which is by the wilderness. And they returned and came to En Mishpat, which is Kadesh, and smote all the country of the Amalekites, and also the Amorites, and dwelt in Hazezon Tamar, something like that. And there went out the king of Sodom, and the king of Gomorrah, and the king of Admah, and the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, the same as Zoar, and they joined battle with them in the vale of Siddim, with Kedorlaomer the king of Elam, and with Tidal king of nations, and Amraphel king of Shinar, and Arioch king of Elasar, 4 kings with 5. And the vale of Siddim was full of slime pits, and the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled and fell there, and they that remained fled to the mountain. And they took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah, and all their victuals, and went their way. And they took Lot, Abram's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and departed. And there came one that had escaped, and told Abram the Hebrew, for he dwelt in the plain of Mamre the Amorite, brother of Eshcol, the brother of Aner, and these were confederate with Abram. And when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his trained servants born in his house, 318, and pursued them unto Dan. And he divided himself against him, he and his servants, by night, and smote them, and pursued them unto Haboah, which is on the left hand of Damascus.
All right, we'll be right back, everyone.
Thought I could get through it.
Nice try.
Yeah.
Extendivite, a 7-herb combination made from garlic, cayenne, hawthorn, bilberry, ginkgo biloba, valerian, and milk thistle. Extendivite feeds our body with the right nutrients to keep us healthy. Just listen to what Arthur has to say.
I was just calling to tell you what a great product you have. I had used this about 10 years ago after I had congestive heart failure. And it fixed me up and got me going for the last 10 years. Lately, I've been having heart trouble again, so I placed another order because this was the only thing that ever worked. And I just wanted to let you know that you have a great product.
To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822, or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
If you have hard water, the Lime Scale not only leaves white spots, it clogs pipes and breaks down appliances, costing you hundreds of dollars in energy and wear. Eliminate Lime Scale and other water issues like brown staining and bad odors with HydroCare water products, available from Wave Home Solutions. Wave's affordable water systems don't use salts or chemicals. You'll love the way your water tastes, smells, and looks. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Dowsing is the ancient science of finding water and metal underground. Albert Einstein said that dowsing was tapping into earth energies which modern science as yet does not understand. Diamonds, silver, gold, and platinum objects have all been found using dowsing. And now, for the first time on film, we visit the pyramids, Stonehenge, and ancient sites, dowsing buried for treasure, and tapping into this mysterious earth energy.
The Enigma Channel. Intelligent television for planet Earth. EnigmaTV.com.
You're listening to the Truth Frequency Radio Network.
No hate, no hype, no fear.
And in those days, there were giants in the land, and the sons of the angels of God looked upon the daughters of men and found them fair, and took of them wives, and their sons became of old great men of renown. So they have been mixing with us on a genetic level since the time of Enoch and Ezekiel's will.
were intrigued by the sun, moon, and stars, and imagine there's got to be planets like ours. So conceive of a face on the surface of Mars, so in need of a meaning and purpose we lost. And indeed they believe that these might be our gods, or that maybe with time we'll do right and evolve, and eventually reach what they seek, and then solve all the problems of man. But they really don't know that they call it the works of our hands are but just filthy rags. So we travel the lands to dig up our past, time our lapses, and with it are much of the facts. Some imagine that gods came in alien class.
All right, welcome back, everybody. I'll turn it back over to you, Rob.
Okay, try to get it done. Couldn't get it done in time.
Yes.
So we left off with Damascus here, and he divided himself against them, he and his servants, by night, and smote them, and pursued them unto Hobah, which is on the left hand of Damascus. And he brought back all the goods, and also brought again his brother Lot, and his goods, and the women also, and the people. And the king of Sodom went out to meet him after his return from the slaughter of Kedorlaomer, and the kings that were with him at the valley of Shavah, which is the king's dale. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High God. And he blessed him, and said, Blessed be Abram of the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth, and blessed be the Most High God, which hath delivered thine enemies into thy hand. And he gave him tithes of all. And the king of Sodom said to Abram, Give me the persons, and take the goods to thyself. And Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have lifted up mine hand upon the Lord and the Most High God, the possessor of heaven and earth, that I will not take from a thread even to a shoe latchet, and that I will not take anything that is thine, lest thou shouldst say, I have made Abram rich, save only that which the young men have eaten, and the portion of the men which went with me, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre. Let them take their portion. That's the end of the King James Version.
All right, I'll do the Targum here.
Okay.
And it was in the days of Amraphel, he is Nimrod, who commanded Abram to be cast into the furnace. He was then king of Pontus. Arioch, so called because he was Arik, tall, among the giants. King of Talisar. Kedorlaomer, so called because he had bound himself or gone over among the bondmen of the king of Elam. And Tidal, crafty as a fox, king of the people subjected to him, made war with Bera, whose deeds were evil, king of Sodom, and with Bersha, whose deeds were with the wicked, king of Amorah. Shinab, who had hated his father, king of Admah, and Shemabar, who had corrupted himself with fornication, king of Zeboim, and the king of the city which consumed Bela, the dwellers thereof, which is Zoar. All these were joined in the vale of the gardens, Paradisaea, the place that produced the streamlets of waters that empty themselves into the sea of salt. 12 years they had served Kedorlaomer, and in the 13th year they had rebelled. And in the 14th year came Kedorlaomer and the kings who were with him, and smote the giants, the Gibberiah, which were in Ashtaroth Karnaim, and the strong who were in Hamatha, and the terrible who were in the plain of Kiriathaim, and the Korah, the dwellers in the caverns, who were in the high mountains of Begalah, unto the valley of Faran, which was nigh upon the edge of the desert, Jerusalem. All these were joined in the valley of the gardens, and they slew the giants who were in Ashtaroth Karnan, the famed who were among them, and the formidable who inhabited the city which they had built, and the cavern people who dwelt in the mountain of Gabala, unto the valley of Vision, which is nigh upon the desert. And they returned and came to the place where was rendered the judgment of Moshe, the prophet, to the fountain of the waters of strife, which is Rekhaim. And they smote all the fields of the Amalekite, and also the Amorite, who dwelt in Engedi, and the king of Sodom, and the king of Amorah, and the king of Admah, and the king of Zeboim, and the king of the city which consumed its inhabitants, which is Zoar, went forth and set the array of battle against them in the valley of the gardens, with Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of the nations, obedient to him, and Amraphel, king of Pontus, and Arioch, king of Telassar, 4 kings arrayed in battle against 5. Jerusalem. And Amraphel, king of Pontus, and Arioch, king of Elasar, 4 kings against 5, spread out the array of war. And the valley of the gardens had many pits filled with bitumen. Jerusalem. The valley of the gardens was full of pits of bitumen. And the kings of Sodom and Amorah fled away and fell there. And they who were left fled to the mountains. And they took all the property of Sodom and Amorah and all their food and went. And they made captive Lot, the son of Abram's brother, and his property, and went, and he had dwelt in Sodom. And Og came, who had been spared from the giants that died in the deluge, and had ridden protected upon the top of the ark, and sustained with food by Noah, not being spared through high righteousness, but that the inhabitants of the world might see the power of the Lord, and say, were there not giants who in the first times rebelled against the Lord of the world, and perished from the earth? But when these kings made war, behold, Og, who was with them, said in his heart, I will go and show Abram concerning Lot, who is led captive, that he may come and deliver him from the hands of the kings into whose hands he has been delivered. And he arose and came upon the eve of the day of the Pascha, and found him making the unleavened cakes. Then showed he to Abram the Hebrew, who dwelt in the valleys of Mamre, Amorah, brother of Eshcol, and brother of Anar, who were men of covenant with Abram. And when Abram heard that his brother was made captive, he armed his young men, who were trained for war, grown up in his house, but they willed not to go with him. And he chose from them Eleazar the son of Nimrod, who was equal in strength to all the 318, and he pursued unto Dan. Jerusalem. Domestics, Meribitzi downliers of his house, 18 and 300, and pursued after them unto Dan of Kisarion. And he divided them at night in the way. A part were to engage with the kings, and a part were hidden to smite the firstborn of Egypt. And he arose, he and his servants, and smote them, and pursued them which remained of them unto the place of the memorial of sin, which was to be in Dan, from the north of Darmesek. Jerusalem. And he pursued them unto Havetha, which is from the north of Damascus. And he brought back all the substance, and also Lot his brother, and his substance he brought back, and also the women and the people. And the king of Sodom came forth after that he returned from destroying Chedorlaomer and the kings who were with him, to meet him at the plain of Mephana, which was the king's race course, Jerusalem, and the kings who were with him at the plain of Vision, which was the house of the king's plain. And Melchizedek, which was Shem bar Noah, the king of Jerusalem, came forth to meet Abram, and brought forth to him bread and wine. And in that time he ministered before him. He ministered before Eloah Ilaha, Jerusalem. And Melchizedek, the king of Jerusalem, who was Shem, who was the great priest of the Most High. And he blessed him and said, Blessed be Abram of the Lord God Most High, who for the righteous possesseth the heavens and the earth. And blessed he Eloha, who hath made thine enemies as a shield, which receiveth the blow. And he gave to him 1 of 10 of all which he brought back. And the king of Sodom said to Aram, Give me the souls of the men of my people whom thou hast brought back, and the substance take to thyself, Jerusalem, and the treasure take to thee. And Abram said to the kings of Sodom, I have uplifted my hands in an oath before the Lord God, the Most High, who for the just possesseth his possession of the heavens and the earth. If from a thread to the latchet of a sandal I receive anything of all that is thine, lest thou magnify thyself in saying, I have enriched Abram from mine own, have I not power over all the spoil? Apart from what the young men have eaten, and the portion of the men who went with me, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, they also receiving their portion. Jerusalem, if from a thread to the latchet of a sandal I receive of all that is thine, that thou magnify not thyself and say, I have enriched Abram.
Wow. So while you were reading, I was looking up the dates on because that's Aramaic with insertions of Jerusalem, right?
Right.
So, and just again, we'll have to repeat this probably as many times as it takes for people to really understand that there's a difference between Talmud and Targum. Targum is
big difference.
Huge difference. Targum is simply the Hebrew word for translation. So your King James Bible is a Targum. This was the first translation into Aramaic, which followed the Babylonian captivity. So this is old. This predates the Septuagint is a Greek Targum. It's a translation of the Hebrew into Greek. So the Septuagint is also a Targum, just like King James is, because this is translation. So this predates the Septuagint, and yet it's got some really interesting things in here. And I was surprised that it came right out and said that Shem was the Melchizedek. I mean, I knew Joshua said that, and there are I think some other texts that say it too, but Joshua comes out right on.
The writings of Abraham says the same.
Does it?
Yeah. Yes.
But I wasn't aware that was actually in the Targum also. That's and that Og, like I was aware of Ginsburg's Legends of the Jews and the story of Og, but I guess they must have pulled that from the Targum. That's the first I've so that's in the Targum.
Yeah.
That Og hitchhiked a ride on the ark.
On the ark, yes.
Man, I'm gonna have to really think that through, because I always just wrote it off as Jewish fairy tale.
Legends, fairy tale.
Because of, I mean, there are Jewish legends and fairy tales, and that it showed up in the Legends of the Jews. But I wasn't aware that was actually in a Targum. That's
yeah. There's a lot of really interesting stuff in the Targum, which is, again, why I recommend people read it. I mean, even though, because a lot of people like to condemn and criticize the Targum just because it does directly tell you that Cain was, from Eve desiring the angel, and that, serpent seed, he was not genealogized in the genealogy of Adam. And so because of that, they absolutely hate this text. But there's so much more information within it that it just brings to light so much more that still remains ambiguous within the modern English translations. And as you said, it predates the Greek Septuagint by 200 years, and it's the oldest and first rendering of the Hebrew Torah into a different language, which is again the Aramaic, and so very intriguing study, which is, I have a preference for the Targum over all of the other translations, but I study everything, all the English, different translations, the Septuagint. I like to study them all in parallel, but the Targum is definitely my most favorite.
Well, of course, this becomes your trump card, and this is why your detractors hate it.
Yes, exactly.
It's just like we were talking a few weeks back about the preterist deal. It's like if you can definitively prove from the ancient record that Revelation was written in 90 AD, then it destroys the entire preterist premise, argument, everything. I mean, it just obliterates it. So, right. So what do they have to do? They have to attack the source, right? You have to attack Irenaeus, or you have to attack, however many other people there were. There were several that I mentioned in the blog that I wrote on it. But it was clear that most, if not all, of the early so-called church fathers, and this is I was looking at pre-Constantine, now that from like 100 AD forward, believed that the Book of Revelation events were yet to come. That they were looking for an Antichrist and looking for the events of Revelation to play out, which clearly meant, this is only 30 years after the destruction of the temple, So if there was an understanding that Revelation was all about the destruction of the temple in 70 AD, this is 30 years later, that many of these people are already talking about a future Antichrist and looking at signs of Revelation. So, they have to attack the credibility of the 90 AD in order to justify their belief in preterism. Just like, if you're King James only, Genesis 4:1, done deal. I was one of them. I was one of those guys. Look, done deal. Look, can you read Genesis 4:1? Hello. And
yes, exactly.
You were the one that you was like, yeah, but dude. And
yes.
So just so people know, let me switch over the screen here for those watching on YouTube. I am on Britannica.com. Okay, you can look it up for yourself. Britannica.com/topic/Targum. Targum, biblical literature. Targum, Aramaic, translation or interpretation. Any of several translations of the Hebrew Bible or portions of it into the Aramaic language. The word originally indicated a translation of the Old Testament in any language, but later came to refer specifically to the Aramaic translation. The earliest Targums date from the time after the Babylonian exile, when Aramaic had superseded Hebrew as the spoken language of the Jews in Palestine. It is impossible to give more than a rough estimate as to the period in which Hebrew was displaced by Aramaic as a spoken language. It is certain, however, that Aramaic was firmly established in Palestine by the 1st century AD, although Hebrew still remained the learned and sacred language. Thus, the Targums were designed to meet the needs of the unlearned Jews, to whom the Hebrew of the Old Testament was unintelligible. The status and influence of the Targums became assured after the Second Temple was destroyed in AD 70, when synagogues replaced the temple as houses of worship. For it was in the synagogue that the practices of reading from the Old Testament became widely observed, along with the custom of providing these readings with a translation into Aramaic. When Scripture was read aloud in the synagogue, it was translated aloud by the meturgemen, or professional interpreter, hence the name Targum. For the benefit of the congregation, the translator tried to reproduce the original text as closely as possible, but since his object was to give an intelligent rendering of the biblical text, the Targums eventually took on the character of paraphrase and commentary. So that's where you're getting much more elaboration, apparently, on here, leaving literal translation behind. To prevent misconceptions, a meturgemen expanded and explained what was obscure, adjusted the incidents of the past to the ideas of later times, emphasized the moral lessons to be learned from the biblical narratives, and adapted the rules and regulations of the Scriptures to the conditions and requirements of the current age. The method by which the text was thus utilized as a vehicle for conveying homiletic discourses, traditional sayings, legends, and allegories is abundantly illustrated by the later Targums as opposed to the more literal translations of the earlier Targums. That's why you prefer the Aramaic translation.
Yes.
Because when you get to Jerusalem or some of the other Targums, it appears they're going less literal and more into discourse, it sounds like.
And you don't know, what was inserted as commentary.
Right, because there's no way to... How are you going to know, right?
Right, exactly.
Last paragraph. Though written Targums gradually came into being, it was the living tradition of oral translation and exposition that was recognized as authoritative throughout the Talmudic period of the early centuries of the Christian era. The official recognition of the written Targum, and therefore the final fixing of its text, belongs to the post-Talmudic period of the 5th century AD. That's interesting. The best known, most literal, and possibly the earliest Targum is the Targum of Onkelos on the Pentateuch, which appeared in its final revision in the 3rd century AD. Other Targums include the Targum of Pseudo-Jonathan and the Samaritan Targum and the Targum of Jonathan ben Uziel. So we're reading from the Pentateuch, the Torah, the Genesis. So right. Targum of Onkelos, what's Onkelos? Is that the name of a person who was known for
Yeah,
it?
he was, I forget who he was a student of, but yeah, he did his own translation. And, who even knows if that was his particular work or if he was translating from a previous or transcribing it from, some other previous. Nobody really knows all that. Because a lot of the latter texts, if the scrolls wear out, then people reproduce them into newer, what seems to be translations or renderings, and then they get dated to that time. But it is my belief that a lot of what we see as the testaments and even the ancient literatures being passed down over time, that they would degrade and they would have to be remade, recopied. And so he was a student that made a particular translation. But, again, it's my opinion that the original Targum dates back to right after the diaspora, because we see even Daniel was written in Aramaic and certain portions of Jeremiah and also the books of Ezra and Nehemiah. And so, it was during that time that they assimilated Aramaic as their predominant lexicon, and that Hebrew became just a scholarly language, and that was only known and understood and spoken by the scholarly class. And so when the temple was rebuilt, when the temple was rebuilt, that was when they needed to have the Aramaic Targum as translation. And so that's why, again, even though they say, first AD as being the official, but it dates back much later.
Well, yeah, I was going to say...
much earlier, sorry.
Much earlier. I was going to say that the original Aramaic tense would have long predated the what is Onkelos or whatever the word was.
Oh, yeah.
Because
absolutely.
isn't the belief that Ezra was the scribe that
exactly.
took it upon himself to translate into Aramaic?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yes. Yeah, Ezra, and again, also Daniel, because he was living in Babylon and he wrote in Aramaic, and also, as I said, portions of Jeremiah after he was taken into Babylon, because of course he was warning the people of the coming destruction, and all of that was in Hebrew. But then when he was taken into the 70 years of captivity, and he even survived all that, portions of his manuscripts were written in Aramaic. And so that it was during that time that the switchover took place.
So the what is the word? Onkelos is what language is the Onkelos translation?
I'm not even certain. Couldn't even tell you. I just know that the two oldest, and that predate everything, and they were only the books of the Pentateuch. I mean, they didn't even include like anything else. They were just the 5 books of Moshe, which the earliest the Israelites, that was their entire Bible, if you want to call it that.
That's been
the Tanakh.
That's been my contention all along, is that the Bible of the people in the Bible, like we walk around with now a pared down from 80 to 66 book collection. We call that our Bible, but they walked around with the Torah. Like everything else is
yes.
commentary or historical documentation or Psalms, or the prophets are all like, hey guys, we got to get back to the Bible. I mean, that's what Bible in that sense, the Torah, and that's what all the prophets are about. Hey,
right.
we're not doing what the Bible says, so we better get back, or we're gonna get really in trouble here. I mean, that's what all the prophets are about. Get back to the Bible. Get back to the Torah. So that is interesting because, but Og would have to be really old because the Exodus, that's 800 years after the flood. It's over 800 years after the flood.
Mm-hmm.
So he would have. I mean, Noah lived 950 years.
Right.
That would presume then that Og was, if true, then he would have to have been born, probably not too long before the flood, because it's unlikely that he would have outlived Noah. So if it's 800 plus years, he may have been around for maybe 50 to 100 years before the flood, if that's true.
We'll be right back, everyone, for second hour.
Truth Frequency Radio is your #1 source for news and information without the hate, hype, and fear. We're proud to feature cutting-edge programs like The Christopher Everard Show, The Covert Report with Susan Lindauer, Enemy Within Radio with Tom Barnes, Freaky Friday with The Woo Crew, The Gematria Effect with Zachary Hubbard, America's Evil Genius with Travis Cook, Phoenix Rising Radio with Phoenix, Quantum Connections with Lucky, and dozens more. Did you know you can listen from any telephone by dialing 641-793-7117 or call into your favorite show toll free at 833-TFR Live. Uncensored talk and news you won't hear in the mainstream media. Truth Frequency Radio, your protection from deception.
The coronavirus takes center stage. I'm Lisa Lacera, Fox News. President Trump and former Vice President Biden both holding town halls tonight separately. In a town hall moderated by ABC News' George Stephanopoulos, former Vice President Joe Biden was asked what he would have done in terms of policy if he were president during the beginning of the outbreak.
The president was informed how dangerous this virus was. And all the way back in the beginning of February, I argued that we should be keeping people in China.
President Trump is taking part in an NBC News town hall. He was asked about the event at the White House where Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett was introduced, that some people have called a super spreader event for COVID-19 because people did not wear masks, saying he has to be out there as president and that people who wear masks are still being diagnosed with the virus. The second presidential debate was supposed to be tonight, but it was canceled after the president's COVID-19 diagnosis. The next debate is a week from today. Go big or go home. That's the message from the president as he pushes Senate Republicans to reach a deal on a new round of coronavirus relief.
In an interview with Fox Business, President Trump said he's willing to raise the White House offer of $1.8 trillion in coronavirus relief. But Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says that sum is a much larger amount than he can sell to his Republican members, proposing instead more targeted spending for small businesses, schools, and unemployment benefits.
Just because you can't have all you want, why not do what we can agree to do, which I think argues for a smaller package.
Now, Speaker Nancy Pelosi has rejected those small proposals are proposed as insufficient, supporting instead a House measure that totals more than $2 trillion. On Capitol Hill, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
Justice Department has charged Texas billionaire Robert Brockman in a $2 billion tax fraud scheme. America is listening to Fox News.
You must unite what has been set aside.
We are TFR. Truth Frequency Radio.
All right, welcome back, everybody, for a second hour. Yeah, the show is flying by as per usual, but let me turn it back over to you, Rob. You were making a point before we went to break.
I have no idea what point I was making, but during the break, I looked up to see what the Onkelos Targum was, and it says it's the official Eastern Babylonian Targum Aramaic translation to the Torah. Its origins may have been Western in Israel, however. Its authorship is attributed to Onkelos, a famous convert to Judaism in Tanaic times, 35 to 120 CE. So, but he was obviously coming off of something else, because of Ezra did a Aramaic before that predated the Septuagint. So I guess my question then is, the Aramaic Targum that you're reading from, is it the Onkelos Targum in Aramaic, or is it another Aramaic translation?
I think it's the Uziel, but again, I'm not positive. There were 4 from the older times. My son is more familiar because he looks up all that stuff.
Yeah.
I spend more of my time just reading the manuscripts and looking at the background.
Yeah.
Which I probably should do more of that, but I prefer to read them and study them.
Well, you can't do it all. Come on, man.
What's that?
You can't do it all. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, exactly, right.
What the heck?
Yeah. That's a lot of reading too, and studying and looking into the background of, especially when you read as many texts as I do. And so, but yeah, I should be more vigilant about that kind of stuff.
I think I was saying before the break how old Og would have had to have been. Yeah, that's what it was. He was.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Because Noah lived 950 years. Shem, what was it, 500 years? I think, something like that. I forget exactly. So Og would have been really old by the time Israel encountered him, if he in fact survived the flood. My jury's out on that. I'm going to have to look into that a little bit more. I've always had a hard time wrapping my mind around that scenario. A dude surfing on the ark for a year, getting fed through a window. And why didn't he just smash into the ark and throw everybody else out? And there's a lot of logistical problems in my mind with that whole idea. And when you read like Ginsburg, he's way bigger than like 15, 18 feet. Like he's just this massive, like you almost get the impression that he's bigger than the ark. Like he's just holding on to the ark like a log under his arm or something.
Oh, right. Yeah, and why wouldn't it, submerge if he was that big? But
I mean, if he's that hungry,
again.
You got to feed a giant, and actually Doug Hamp did a whole thing in his book, Corrupting the Image. I forget what it was, but he was going by the basal metabolic rate, that says how many calories you need to basically keep your heart going, based on height and weight. And he was saying, depending on, let's go 15, 18 feet is like what most people place Og at based on the description of his bed. That let's say in the 15 to 18 foot range, I forget how much it was, but like this ridiculous number of cheeseburgers and pizzas he would have to eat in order to take in the number of calories that he would need just to keep his heart going. But like Doug says, like he wasn't just laying there, he was a warrior. Well, if you're a warrior, you're going to need a lot more calories than just maintenance calories. So it seems to me that a guy like that would have eaten up everything that was in the ark. So I mean, that and his age and a few other problems I would have with accepting that.
Mm-hmm. I just go by what the texts say, and then I've seen multiple confirming witness from other places as to this possibility. But yeah, I can understand your concerns, and also with the Book of Enoch, it says that after the flood, that God would reduce the lifespan of the giants to 500 years, and so.
Well, he would violate that because the Exodus was 800 years after the flood.
But he was, he wasn't born after the flood, so he would, well, according to the story, being the last remnant giant.
Oh, fair enough. So he would be of the generation before the flood.
Yeah, the generation before the flood, yeah.
It is interesting. I also pulled something else up here. This is from Josephus, Antiquity of the Jews, Book 1, Chapter 9. It's a short paragraph, so I'll read it. It's his version of the events of Genesis 14. At this time, when the Assyrians had the dominion over Asia, the people of Sodom were in a flourishing condition, both as to riches and the number of their youth. There were 5 kings that managed the affairs of this country: Belus, Barsus, Cinnabar, and Samobar, with the king of Bela and each king led on his own troops, and the Assyrians made war upon them, and dividing their army into 4 parts, fought against them. Now every part of the army had its own commander, and when the battle was joined, the Assyrians were conquerors and imposed the tribute on the kings of the Sodomites, who submitted to this slavery 12 years, and so long they continued to pay their tribute. But on the 13th year they rebelled, and then the army of the Assyrians came upon them, under their commanders Amraphel, Arioch, Kedorlaomer, and Tidal. These kings had laid waste all of Syria, and overthrown the offspring of the giants. And when they were come over against Sodom, they pitched their camp at the vale called the Slime Pits, for at that time there were pits in that place. But now, upon the destruction of the city of Sodom, that vale became Lake Asphaltites, as it is called. However, concerning this lake we shall speak more presently. Now when the Sodomites joined battle with the Assyrians, and the fight was obstinate, many of them were killed, and the rest were carried captive, among which captives was Lot, who came to assist the Sodomites. It is interesting there that, I mean, here we have another testimony of giants, and they were very much concerned with eradicating the giants. So there is a lot of activity in the post-flood, especially in the first 1,200 years. It's 1,200 years from the flood to the time of David. So, and in that time, like, there's massive extermination of giants taking place.
Right.
You know, like somehow they sprung up, whether it's through the offspring of Og, which I really have a hard time believing, or the thesis of the 3 wives, or even multiple incursions, which I desperately fight against and disagree with. Whatever the case may be, there are giants that showed up. And they began to proliferate over time. And because we're at this stage, we're only about 400 years or so after the flood, right about now, with the Genesis 14 war. In fact, let me see if I can pull something up here. Yes. Let me switch over. Hang on a second. I have, for those watching on YouTube, this is the Nimrod Abraham timeline that I got on the screen here. So you have the flood over here, about 1900 AM, or year from creation. AM, I forget what it stands for, Anno Mundi or something like that.
Yeah.
Year since creation, or 2100-ish BC. So you got 1, 2, 3, about 380 to 400 years after the flood, we run into the Genesis 14 war, and giants are springing up all in that 400-year time period right there, to the point where you have 5 kings going up against 4 kings. And let me blow this up a little bit. Genesis 14, and I can't confirm this absolutely, but I have a strong suspicion, let me put it that way, that Mamre, Anar, and Eshcol were giants. They were Amorites, and we know that the Amorites were giants. And Amos 9:6 is the firmament one, right? So it's 2:9, I believe. Amos 2:9 describes the Amorites as cedar tree sized. It appears to me, anyway, that Mamre, Anar, and Eshcol were confederates of Abram, as it says there in Genesis. That they were giants. And I tell people, like, you got to rethink Abraham. You know, we think Father Abraham had many sons, right? We think of this old guy with a big beard. He eventually became that, but at least at this stage in his life, you got to think more along the lines of Gerard Butler in the movie 300.
Right, exactly, yeah.
You know, Sparta! He's definitely pulling a Sparta going on here, and 308, the movie 300, right? He's got 318, right?
Right, exactly.
Abrams 318.
Trained in war, as it says in the Targum.
Trained in war. I've got a picture. It shows that was it? I forget the name of the stone. That huge stone in Baalbek. There's a name for it. You know what I'm talking about? The megalithic stone. It's like massive.
Yes, the trilithium stone or the.
It's like Big Bertha or something. They got some kind of nickname for it. I forget what it is. Anyway, it's a famous, huge block of stone in Lebanon that nobody knows. Like, how is that thing quarried, cut, and moved? I mean, it's just massive. And when you see a 6-foot tall person standing on that thing, it just reinforces the huge scale of this. It's just massive. And people are like, we don't know. Of course, they're like, well, it must have been aliens, right? Aliens. Must have made it happen. And I'm like, well, it didn't have to be aliens. You put 36 footers, a cedar tree size Amorite, one on either end of this thing, and that's not really that big a problem, pardon the pun. I've got, let me zoom in here again. So I've got this picture of these great big giants on either end of this stone there, and I found a quote by Michael Aloof, History of Baalbek, that we were talking, I think it was last week's show, that when you interviewed what's his name, Timothy Alberino, yeah, he was actually quoting from him too, saying that Cain built the structures in Baalbek and that Nimrod came in afterwards and rebuilt it. And he was quoting this same guy. There's a book called The History of Baalbek by Michael Aloof. On page 41, I quote him: "After the flood, when Nimrod reigned over Lebanon, he sent giants to rebuild the fortress of Baalbek." So, I mean, there are giants all over the place here, and I maintain that this is a war of giants against giants.
Yes.
Here, the more you look into this, the more you kind of come to that conclusion. And when I was doing my research for Archon Invasion, I was talking to both Dr. Aaron Judkins, and Dr. Judd Burton, both of which are biblical archaeologists. And I said, "Hey guys, can you kind of check behind me here, check my logic here? I think they're possibly the largest archaeological or the greatest archaeological find of all time is waiting for us in the probably the southern region of the Dead Sea." And because that's where, Josephus tells you that the slime pits and everything, that was before the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, and after the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, they started calling it Lake Asphaltites or Asphalt. And I was like, well, I mean, if the 4 kings of giants chased the 5 kings of giants into these slime pits and they were killed there, then after the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, it was buried underwater after being buried under brimstone, that they're probably very well preserved with all that bitumen and salt. So I'm like, can you guys kind of check behind me here, because I'm thinking the greatest archaeological find of all time is waiting for us down there. And can you imagine finding 5 armies worth of giants very well preserved? That's
because they brought out so much stuff from the La Brea tar pits in California.
Exactly. Yeah, when you consider what they pulled out.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine what could be pulled out of the Genesis 14 War of Giants? And while you were saying that, I pulled up my Archon Invasion presentation, the first part 1, talking about Genesis 14 War and the kings. You got Kedorlaomer, king of Elam; Tidal, king of nations; Amraphel, who is Nimrod. Joshua tells you that point blank, king of Shinar; Arioch, king of Eleazar. So I started looking up these guys' names. And Kedorlaomer, he was an Elamite, Kudur Lagamar, which means servant of Lagameru, who was the Akkadian Ninurta, the god of war, equals Nimrod. So I had already made connections with synchronicity and whatnot, that Nimrod and Ninurta were likely the same individual. So this guy apparently was servant of Lagameru, who was the Akkadian version of Ninurta, who was Nimrod. So he was originally a servant of Nimrod, but then at the Tower of Babel, people were split up, and he became somewhat of an adversary. We saw that in last week. I think you were reading Writings of Abraham or a Targum or something, that he beat Nimrod down in a fight.
Mm-hmm.
There was a fight, and Kedorlaomer won, and then later we see Nimrod coming back, and there's some kind of reunion with these guys, but Kedorlaomer's in charge here now. He's like the general of this war.
He made them subject to him.
Yeah, so Nimrod is subject to Kedorlaomer.
Yes, for 13 years.
And title, king, his name means cast out from above. Cast out from above, or from the Most High. Amraphel, who is Nimrod, his name means sayer of darkness, and he was the rebellious one. And Arioch is interesting because his name means lion-like.
Wow.
And you read something about Arioch also, that he was a giant in the Targum. They gave, your Targum gave a definition for Arioch also.
Yes, right.
He was giant-like or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me wonder about the lion-like men of Moab. If Arioch might be one of the lion men of Moab that we see in 1 Chronicles 11:22, that he may have been one of these characters. And then we have also mentioned in Genesis 14 the Raphaims and Ashtaroth, Karnaim, Zuzims and Ham, Emims and Shava Kiriathaim, Horites in their mount, Amalekites, and the Amorites that dwell in Hazazontamar. And when it says that Nimrod became a mighty hunter before the Lord, in Genesis, 10:8 and 9, I think is where it talks about Nimrod. And we talked about this in previous shows, that Gabor, the plural Gaborim, it can mean mighty man, and that's the way it's interpreted in Greek. With David's mighty man, they took the Hebrew word Gaborim and translated into like ton dynatos or something like that, toast dynatos or something, which means like power. What's the root word for which we get like dynamite? That David's men were like powerful, strong warriors like dynamite. But the same Hebrew scholars took the exact same Hebrew word and translated it as gigas for Nimrod. That's the root for gigantus, for gigantic. So when it says that Nimrod began to become a giant hunter before the Lord, I began to wonder if it's maybe has two meanings. In other words, he became a giant who was a hunter, and or he became a hunter of giants.
Giants, right.
He was the giant hunter before the Lord. Well, we see that he definitely was out there doing that. The opposing army of kings came from Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and Bela, with the exception of Bela, Zoar, a tiny town. These are all areas settled by the children of Canaan. Note, there are no fallen angels anywhere in the picture. Genesis 14 deals exclusively with the grandchildren of Noah, specifically the offspring of Canaan. In the case of Nimrod, Amraphel, the offspring of Cush. And then I defined the names of the 5 kings. Bursa, king of Sodom, Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Sheneb, king of Admah, Shemeber, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, the same is Zoar. Bera means in the evil. That's what his name means. Bersha, in wickedness. Sheneb, father's tooth, change of father, and your Targum mentioned that too. It gave the definition, which I was always wondered about. I was like, what's that about? But whatever you read defined that for us. Shemeber, name of soaring, literally the name of a wing. So not sure what to make about that. And king of Bela means swallowing. So again, don't know what to think about that. Slime pits, again, antiquities. Yeah, so that's about all I need to share with that. I don't want to hog the whole show up, but that's from my Archon Invasion book and DVD, which videos on YouTube.
That's all very interesting. And I think that, the names, especially going back in the ancient past and looking at what the Hebrew, they're deeply meaningful. And so, yeah, as you mentioned here in the Targum Arioch, it says so-called because he was Arik, tall among the giants. And so, yeah, I think it's very interesting to do those kind of studies. And if people did that more, they would learn more about the subject matter of what they're, reading and studying about.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, that's why we're doing what we're doing.
Right.
going deeper. So, what does the writings of Abraham? I think I stopped you from continuing reading that last week. If you wanted to pick up where you left off on that, maybe.
Yeah, I'll do that. All right, chapter 91, the writings of Abraham. Previous to this time, Amraphel, son of Nimrod, king of Shinar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, Arioch, king of Cappadocia, and Tidal, king of Goyim in Mesopotamia, had waged war against Bera, king of Sodom, Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinar, king of Admah, Shemeber, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela. They assembled for combat in the vale of Siddim, and the king of Shinar and his royal allies overcame the king of Sodom and his confederates and imposed tribute upon them. For 12 years they paid their tribute to the king of Shinar, but in the 13th year they revolted against him. In the 14th year the king of Shinar led forth all his allies, and they went up along the way of the wilderness, attacking and plundering all who were confederates with the king of Sodom. But the king of Sodom and the king of Gomorrah, the king of Admah, and the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela came forth to battle and met Amraphel and his allies in the vale of Siddim. However, Amraphel and his allies prevailed against them, and Bera, king of Sodom, turned and fled, and Bersha, king of Gomorrah, fell into the slime pits. Wow. There you go.
Yeah.
Which were in the vale of Siddim, and perished there. The remainder of the kings fled unto the mountain which was called Hannibal, and tarried there in great fear. But one of Lot's servants who dwelt in this house escaped and came to me in Hebron, and told me that Lot, my brother's son, had been taken with all his possessions, but that he yet lived. He showed me, moreover, the route which the kings had taken toward the land of Damascus. When I heard this news, mine heart melted within me, for Lot, who had stood at my right hand, had been as a brother to me, in the place of my brother Haran, who had been slain in the land of Shinar. Oh, that Lot had stayed among the body of saints of the Most High God, I thought, and not go off to possess his own property apart. Then these circumstances would never have befallen him, that he should be in the hands of Amraphel, son of Nimrod, king of Shinar, and his host. But as I thus mourned over Lot, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Up, arouse thee, O Abram, take 380 of the young men of the strength of thine house, and also thy friends, Anaram, Eshcol, and Mamre, each with 105 of the strength of his house, and also Eleazar of Damascus, who is with thee in the tent, and pursue after Amraphel, son of Nimrod, king of Shinar, for truly I shall deliver his host into your hands. Wherefore we did according to all that the Lord had commanded me, having all 700 of men, and we pursue after them, even unto the valley of Dan, where we found them encamped, and falling upon them by night, from all 4 directions we commenced the work of death, and continued wreaking slaughter among them, and discomforting them all that night. And with the rising of the sun they fled from before us, until they reached Hobah, which is situated to the left of Damascus, where we did again overtake them and conquer them. There we did strip them of all that they had taken as plunder and loot, and likewise of all their won goods. Lot also and his family we rescued from their hands, and restoring to him all his possessions and all that they had taken from him as spoil, we restored him to his home in peace. When the king of Sodom heard that I had returned from the conquest of Amraphel, son of Nimrod, king of Shinar, he came forth to meet me at the valley of Shaveh, which is west of the city of Shalom, where Noah and Melchizedek dwelt. And Melchizedek brought forth bread and wine from the city of Shalom unto the valley of Shaveh, where we were encamped. And he, being the high priest after the order of the Most High God, brake the bread and blessed it, and he blessed the wine also, and he distributed them unto me. and those who were with me, and we partook and were filled. And Melchizedek lifted up his hands to heaven and blessed me, and said, Blessed Abraham, thou art a man of the Most High God, possessor of heaven and of earth. Wherefore his name and priesthood shall not depart from thee and thy seed after thee, while the earth shall stand, and even in eternity shall it remain with thee. And blessed is the name of the Most High God, and almighty his power, which hath delivered thine enemies into thine hand. And I, Abraham, gave into the hand of Melchizedek tithes of all that I had taken. For he was the presiding high priest after the order of the Most High God, the first of the fathers. Golly. All right, we'll be right back.
From the dawn of man, we have turned to nature to help attain balance within ourselves. But somewhere, we lost our way. Western culture is once again remembering the healing benefits of CBD, the non-psychoactive component of the hemp plant. That's why more and more people who use CBD report relief from inflammation and chronic pain, balanced blood sugar and cardiovascular system, relief from muscle tensions, tremors, migraines, headaches, anxiety, depression, and the list goes on. The big question is, where do you get it? Life is a 99% pure CBD oil made with all organic ingredients, and it's available to TFR listeners worldwide. If you use coupon code TFR at checkout, you'll get $5 towards your order. Head on over to ialife.com now. That's AYA life.com.
Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies in a capsule.
It's a great product. And the one thing I like about it the most is that when you open the bottles, you can smell like the scent of the fruits and veggies. It's no genius thing to it. It's really just fruits and veggies, which everyone needs. And you guys kind of put it in a way where you can take it easy and you can get it, and it's natural, and that's what I like about it. You know, I like the product, and I've taken it, and it's definitely made me feel a lot better. You know, I am a healthy person to begin with, but it's definitely good prevention, and it's definitely gives me energy, and I feel like it's a natural thing. I like it. I really do.
For a limited time, use discount code TALK to receive a 50% discount on your first preferred whole health system and have it shipped to you free. Call 1-800-246-8751 or go online to balanceofnature.com. Again, use discount code TALK.
Dowsing is the ancient science of finding water and metal underground. Albert Einstein said that dowsing was tapping into earth energies which modern science as yet does not understand. Diamonds, silver, gold, and platinum objects have all been found using dowsing. And now, for the first time on film, we visit the pyramids, Stonehenge, and ancient sites, dowsing for buried treasure and tap into this mysterious earth energy.
The Enigma Channel. Intelligent television for planet Earth. EnigmaTV.com.
No hate, no hype, no fear. We are TFR. Your protection from deception.
All right, welcome back, everybody, for final segment. I was reading from the writings of Abraham. Rob, did you want to comment or say anything before I continue?
No, I do have some thoughts, but I'll wait till after you're done.
Okay. All right, I'll continue then. Um, I'll reread this last paragraph. And I, Abraham, gave into the hand of Melchizedek tithes of all that I had taken, for he was the presiding high priest after the order of the Most High God, the first of the fathers unto me, and he reigned under his father Noah. And when the king of Sodom had come unto me, he said unto me, My lord Abraham, give me the persons who are not thine, but who are with thee, whom thou hast rescued from the hand of Amraphel, son of Nimrod, king of Shinar, but let all the property be left with thee. But I said unto him, This day do I, Abraham, lift up mine hand before the Most High God, before his holy angels, and before these witnesses who are with us, and declare that I will not take even so much as a thread or a shoe's latchet which is not mine, lest thou shouldest say that all Abraham's wealth cometh really from their possession. Only that which the young men who are with me have eaten, and that which Adoram, Eshcol, and Mamre, these three stalwarts who went with me, have received as their share, shall be accepted of all that I took from Amraphel, son of Nimrod, king of Shinar, that was thine. The rest I return freely unto thee. Now go thy way in peace. Thereupon I returned all the possessions and all the spoil, and gave them unto the king of Sodom. And I released all the captives, and sent them away rejoicing. And when I had done this, Melchizedek again lifted up his voice, and blessed me, saying, Blessed art thou, Abraham, for the Most High God shall visit thee, and shall bestow upon thee riches and honor, and lands for an everlasting possession, because thou hast been true and faithful to the covenants which thou hast entered before him. Wherefore thou shalt continue to increase worlds without end, and thy glory and the glory of the Lord shall never depart from thee. The blessing of thy fathers shall rest upon thee, and thou shalt stand at the head, and in thee and thy seed after thee those who shall bear thy priesthood shall all the nations of the earth be blessed. Therewith I departed from Melchizedek, rejoicing in his blessing. For he was a man of faith who wrought righteousness, and when a child he feared God, and by his faith he stopped the mouths of lions, and quenched the violence of fire, when those of the evil combination sought to destroy him from off the face of the earth. Therefore, having been approved of God, he was ordained a high priest after the order of the covenant which God made with Enoch, which is after the order of the firstborn, even our father Adam. For this holy order came not by man, nor the will of man, neither by father nor mother, neither by beginning of days nor end of years, but of God. For it was established in the beginning of the earth by the Ancient of Days, wherefore it is called the order of the ancients. And it was delivered unto men from the beginning by the calling of God's own voice, according to his own will, through the voice of his priesthood, and unto as many as believed on his name, and were faithful until they obtained. I think I should. Oh, well, this part is part of the ancient order, so I'll read this as well. Behold, these could transcend the veil according to the will of God, and commune with the general assembly and church of the firstborn in heaven, and many were caught up to be with them. For God had sworn unto Enoch and unto his seed with an oath by himself, that everyone being ordained after this order and calling should have power by faith to break mountains, to divide the seas, to dry up waters, to turn them out of their course, to put at defiance the armies of nations, to divide the earth, to break every band, to stand in the presence of God, and to do all things according to his will, according to his command, to subdue principalities and powers, and this by the will of the Son of the only begotten of the Father, which was from before the foundation of the world. And men having this faith and coming up unto this order of God could be translated and taken up into heaven. Now Melchizedek was a priest after this order, which is the holy order of God. Therefore he obtained peace and shalom, and was called the Prince of Peace. And his people wrought righteousness and obtained heaven, for they sought for the city of Enoch, which God had before taken, separating it from the earth, having reserved it unto the latter days, or the end of the world. For God hath said and sworn with an oath that the heavens and the earth should come together again, and the sons of God be tried even by fire. And thus Melchizedek, having established righteousness, was called the King of Heaven by his people, or in other words, the King of Peace. And they commanded with those in the city of Enoch, in the city of Peleg, and had access to them, and were blessed in their days. I'll just read this vision too, and then I'll turn it back over to you. After these things God appeared to me in a vision, and he said unto me, Behold, Abraham, it is 10 full years since thou camest into this land from Haran. 2 years didst thou remain then in the land, 7 years wast thou in Egypt, and 1 year hath passed since thy return from Egypt. Now number all that thou hast, and see how it hath increased to double that which went out with thee in the day thou camest forth from Haran. Therefore fear not, for I am with thee, and will be thine help and the source of thy strength. I will be thy shield and thine exceeding great reward, and thy wealth and thy possession shall I increase exceedingly. And I said unto him, My Lord God, truly my wealth and my possessions have increased, but behold, Eleazar of Damascus standeth as mine heir. Whereas prior to my departure from the city of Shalom, Father Shem said unto Eleazar is a good and righteous man, and he shall be greatly blessed in time and eternity, but he shall not be thine heir. For another shall be thine heir, who shall come forth from the womb of thy wife, whom thou shalt take in the house of thy father, for she is ordained to be thy queen of queens, and the mother of thine heir. Wherefore then doth Sarah remain barren, having neither son nor daughter? Nay, replied God, fear not, for none shall be thine heir, save he that shall come forth from the womb of thy wife Sarah, for she is ordained to be thy queen of queens, and the mother of thine heir. Therefore is her name Sarah. I'll stop there and turn it back over to you.
Yeah, wow. It talks about the city of Enoch being taken up. I wonder if that's
New Jerusalem.
Yeah, I was just going to say, is the city of Enoch the New Jerusalem?
It is, yes.
Wow, I had never heard that before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a fascinating concept, and that's something also spoken about in the early portion of the writings of Abraham. And it, again, it speaks about not only Enoch, well, because Enoch was certainly translated, but it says that his entire city, that they were all righteous, and that God took them before the judgment of the flood, because he didn't want the righteous to have to suffer or be punished, and that a lot of the righteous, even that were not taken up with them, they were allowed to pass away before the coming of that judgment and punishment. And I think that this will also be part of even the times that we are living in now. Even Methuselah, that he was allowed to pass, and then 7 days after, the judgment of the flood came upon the world.
Wow. So Enoch was not, for God took him, and you're saying that the city that was named after him, that he presided over, was also righteous enough that city lifted up off the ground and flew up into the sky too?
That's what it says. And I've not seen that said anywhere else.
And that's in the writings of Abraham.
Yeah, only in the writings of Abraham have I heard of that concept and mention of that. But I did see somewhere else, and I can't bring it up right now, as to New Jerusalem being equated with, the city of Enoch, but I don't remember where that was.
Wow, that's that's pretty trippy. And Writings of Abraham, I think I got the verse right, chapter 99, verse 2, I think, was also very messianic.
Oh yes, yeah, about Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah, about the Son of God.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I love that it includes all of that within this manuscript, and also about the because one of the books that I'm going to send you is the Book of the Order of the Ancients, and this manuscript goes into great detail about that, about the Melchizedek priesthood, and you don't find that in a lot of manuscripts. You do find it spoken of, even in Hebrews. It's mentioned that about the church of the firstborn, but here it speaks about it in great detail, how Adam was first initiated, and even Abraham by Shem, who was the son of Noah, and that he was Melchizedek, and that he was of the order of the ancients, and that he initiated him, Abraham, also as a high priest in this ancient order of the ancients, and then the church of the firstborn, and the Melchizedek priesthood, and how it goes back even to Adam, which he was initiated in paradise before his fall. And so all of these things are contained in that Book of the Order of the Ancients, which has not only a manuscript which not a lot of people have heard, written by Elijah, the Tishbit. It's called the Book of the Order of the Ancients, and I have included with it another manuscript called the Kitab al-Magali, which speaks about Adam being initiated into the Melchizedek priesthood in paradise before his fall, and then it includes the full book of the writings of Abraham, because there's so much about this ancient order in this manuscript, as you've heard in the past few paragraphs.
Yeah, you and I are well aware of the order of Melchizedek, but so many people in the Christian church just aren't, and that's because of largely because of like KJV onlyism,
right?
And
Exactly,
being afraid to look into anything else. And I made a little note for myself, because I always wondered, like, why did it go from talking about Shem to Shem being Melchizedek? And as you were reading the writing of Abraham, it occurred to me that last week or the week before, we read about Noah had died. And so Noah was the Melchizedek at that time, even though he's not referred to that way. He's doing his thing coming off the ark and everything like that, but he's clearly grooming Shem for that part. But after Noah dies, Shem becomes referred to as the Melchizedek. So
Melchizedek, yes.
It is clear that he took on the mantle, that he took on the king priesthood, the kingship and the priesthood. But that it is an order, because people look at like Hebrews chapter 7, for this Melchizedek, king of Salem, priest of the Most High God, who met Abram returning from the slaughter of the kings and blessed him, to whom also Abram gave a tenth part of all, first being by interpretation king of righteousness, and after that also king of Salem, which is king of peace, without father, without mother, without descent, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but made like unto the Son of God. This is where people will say that no, Melchizedek is a pre-incarnate Yeshua.
Yes.
I'm going, you got massive problems with that. If you believe that Melchizedek is a pre-incarnate Yeshua, well, he's not pre-incarnate, because he's incarnate. He's that would mean he had a incarnation before being born of Mary, and not only that, but he was ruling and reigning in the land of Jerusalem, king of Salem. He was ruling and reigning on earth as a king for an extended period of time. So you have a pre-incarnate incarnate Yeshua here, and the reason they say that is because without father or mother. Well, first of all, Yahuwah is the father of Yeshua, and Mary was the earthly mother of Yeshua, so that doesn't fit. And my interpretation, my understanding of this is you have to go back and look at David in Psalm 110:4. The Lord hath sworn and will not repent. Thou art a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. So, and I believe it's Hebrews 8 also, I think, talks about that Yeshua is our new high priest in the order of Melchizedek. So, I mean, everything argues against the idea that Melchizedek was in any way the angel of the Lord or Yeshua, but rather that it was an order of king priests. It goes back to Adam, who had no father or mother. He was without descent. He came from dirt.
There you go. Yes.
Adam came from dirt. So that understanding that it was an order of a king priest that was passed from father to son, starting with Adam, who was made the king priest by Yahuwah himself after he pulled him out of dirt and breathed into him the breath of life and became a living nefesh. He becomes king priest and passed that down to Seth. And from Seth, I'm trying to think I think it went from Seth to, I don't remember if it went to before Enoch, but I know I'm trying to, because it overlaps. You have to go back and look at the overlap of ages. So whoever's the righteous heir son, and it's supposed to be a firstborn, but it never was. There was always a problem. Like Cain is the firstborn and he kills Abel, so Seth is the thirdborn. And you find this all over, all the time. For some reason, there's always a reason, and there are varying reasons, that it bypassed the firstborn and went to a second or third or fourth, and until we get to Jacob, who was the last Melchizedek in the order from Adam. The order of Melchizedek went to Jacob, and then after Jacob, it was split, with the priesthood going to Levi and the kingship going to Judah, and it wasn't reunited again until we get to Yeshua, who is the firstborn, who is the true firstborn, second Adam.
Yes, absolutely. I think I should read just one more chapter. I think you'll find this.
Okay.
And it's short, so then we can comment afterwards. It says, "And the Lord took me," and this is continue with the writing of Abraham.
Cool.
"And the Lord took me out of the camp, and he said, Look now toward heaven, and tell the stars, if thou be able to number them. And he said unto me, So shall thy seed be. And I said unto him, Lord God, how wilt thou give me this land for an everlasting inheritance? And the Lord replied, Though thou wast dead, yet am I not able to give it thee? And if thou shalt die, yet thou shalt possess it. For the day cometh that the Son of Man shall live. But how can he live if he be not dead? He must first be quickened. And the Lord touched the eyes of mine understanding, that they were open, and I beheld the days of the Son of Man. For I beheld him ministering unto my seed, teaching them the law of God, healing the sick, casting out devils, and doing many wonderful works. I saw also the Son of Man lifted up upon the cross for the sins of men. Wherefore I wept for the wickedness of man, which could crucify the Son of God. Nevertheless I saw also that he should rise again from the dead, wherein mine heart did rejoice, and my soul found rest in the knowledge that, though I should die, yet again in the flesh should I see God, and dwell in the land of mine inheritance. For I saw also the days of the coming of the Son of Man upon the earth, in the last days, when he shall descend with 10,000s of his saints, according to the prophecy of Father Enoch, and the earth shall be cleansed by fire. Then all shall rise to stand before God, both the just and the unjust, to be judged according to their works."
Wow. This really seems like it, it's either extraordinarily prophetic, or it was written at some point or elaborated or embellished upon by a Christian after the fact for it to be that specific.
Right.
Although, we do see that Abraham saw me in his days. Yeshua would say stuff like that. So, yeah, it makes you wonder. That's the most specific. If it really is an ancient text that predates the New Testament, that's by far the most specific, detailed prophecy I've ever seen of the Messiah. My skeptical side of me says, it seems like a Christian may have tampered with that one a bit, at some point. But Still pretty wild. I did
Yeah,
notice
still
that
interesting.
it said Amraphel was a son of Nimrod, though. That was interested that it wasn't. And I think also the Targum was alluding to that too, that Amraphel was not Nimrod, but the son of Nimrod, where Joshua tells you it was Nimrod.
Well, maybe, even his son that came after him also took that title as well.
Oh, yeah, because it could be. Yeah, it does appear to be a title, the Dark Sayer, because before that he was known as Nimrod.
Right.
So maybe Amraphel becomes like Pharaoh we read last week in Joshua. Pharaoh became a title. Although it did seem interesting that we were talking about the Genesis 14 war, and that takes place in the area of the Dead Sea and the Sodom and Gomorrah, but they kept making reference to Damascus, which is quite far away from the Dead Sea. I mean, it's so I'd have to look at that again. I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Did they leave the Battle of Damascus and head up to Damascus? I mean, from the Dead Sea. I mean, they fight the battle in the Dead Sea area and then head up to Damascus, because the war of the 318, although the writings of Abraham says 380 versus 318, was fought up in the vicinity of Dan. And that's up in the
and then it also says west of Damascus. I don't know how far west that is, but
that's west of Damascus. That's in like Lebanon territory. I think Syria, Lebanon. I don't know. I mean, this is why I do timeline charts.
Right.
Because like reading it, I can't wrap my head around it. It's like I got to take it, put it down, and then look at it as a picture.
Look at it, yeah.
Fascinating stuff.
Yeah,
we didn't even.
That's great that you do that kind of stuff, though.
Oh, thank you. We didn't even read Joshua and Jubilee's accounts of this, so maybe well, we don't have time to do it tonight, so we will maybe save that for my show next week.
Sounds good.
We'll continue on the Genesis 14 narrative and look at a few other texts. I mean, there's a lot going on here.
Right. I'll read also from the Legends of the Jews and the Chronicles of Jeremiah next time. So
now, what is the Chronicles of Jeremiah? I mean, and I've been meaning to ask you. So we've got a few minutes. If you could tell me Chronicles of Jeremiah and the bee, something the bee.
The Book of the Bee and the Cave of the Treasures. They are also compilations. The Chronicles of Jeremiah was said to be written by Bishop of Nessara and something like that, Nasora or something. It's some city, but anyways, it's a compilation, sort of like how Ginsburg put together all the Midrash and then placed them in order, and that became the Legends of the Jews. This individual uses all these ancient manuscripts, which he is also familiar with, and he puts them in order in timelines so they parallel the account of the biblical narrative, and they share, sort of like the Legends of the Jews, all these ancient texts, more like the Perkdi Rabbi Eleazar or the Legends of the Patriarchs and the Prophets, which both of those manuscripts include a lot of ancient manuscripts, some of which we don't have access to, and you cannot find, and we don't have available anymore. And like the Assatir, the Secret Book of Moses, it also does the same thing in telling the story that we are familiar with within the Bible. It brings in all these other, and there's so many footnotes, which I love that, with all the footnotes and the origins and these ancient sources, and giving more detail on the story. It's and so it's another one of those, and I think they date it to the 8th century, but as to where this particular guy lived during that time, and then he compiled these manuscripts. And the Book of the Bee is just like it covers the 6,000 years of what is the Second World Age and the duration of that, and goes into great detail on the coming of Christ and the first Advent. The lineage and the bloodline of Mary is covered in great detail within that manuscript, and the Cave of Treasures, where we have Luke chapter 3 that covers the bloodline and the lineage of Adam going all the way to Joseph and Mary. Well, specifically to Joseph and Luke, but in the Cave of Treasures and also the Book of the Bee, it's specific to Mary, and it shows how she was both of the Aaronic priesthood, but also of the Judaic line of kings, and so that through Yeshua, as you said, the Levitical priesthood and the kingship of Judah was brought back into combination through him.
Very cool. Why do they call it the Book of the Bee?
Next week. Yeah.
All right.
All right. Be blessed. Good night, all. Shalom.